I stood in front of the full-length mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at me. The ivory dress hugged my curves perfectly, tiny pearls catching the light as I shifted. 3 years ago, I would have laughed if someone told me I'd be here. 5 minutes, Stella. Sarah poked her head in, her smile wide. You ready? Was I ready? My heart fluttered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I'd spent 32 years building walls around myself, convinced I'd never find someone who wouldn't eventually leave. Then Daniel walked into my life with his quiet confidence and unwavering patience. I've never been more ready for anything, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Sarah crossed the room, adjusting my veil with practiced hands. He's going to lose his mind when he sees you. The roses in my bouquet released their sweet scent as I clutched them tighter. My father should have been here to walk me down the aisle, but he'd chosen a new family over us 15 years ago. I'd invited him anyway. He hadn't responded. Ivy said Dad's not coming, I said, the words still stinging despite my preparation for this moment. Sarah squeezed my shoulder. His loss. Completely, utterly his loss. Music swelled from the church sanctuary. The wedding coordinator appeared at the door, giving us a thumbs up. This is it, Sarah whispered, her eyes glistening. You're happily ever after. I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. Yolanda, who'd been more mother to me than my own since college, waited to escort me. She clasped my hands, tears already streaming down her cheeks. Look at you, she whispered. Absolutely radiant. The doors opened. I caught sight of Daniel at the altar, his eyes finding mine instantly. The smile that broke across his face made my chest ache with happiness. This man, this kind, brilliant man, was about to become my husband. Each step down the aisle felt like floating. The faces of our friends and family blurred together as I focused solely on Daniel, on the future we were about to build. I was 3 steps from the altar when the church doors crashed open. Stop the wedding. The voice sliced through the music, through the moment, through my heart. A voice I'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Jake. The church fell silent as he strode down the aisle, his face flushed. I froze, my body suddenly cold despite the warm June air filtering through the stained glass windows. Jake, what the hell? Daniel stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of me. She can't marry you, Jake said, his eyes wild as they locked with mine. Tell him, Stella. Tell him about us. The bouquet trembled in my grip. There is no us. There hasn't been for years. Jake laughed, the sound hollow and cruel. That's not what you said 3 weeks ago in my bed. Gasps rippled through the church. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? Daniel's voice had dropped to a whisper. He's lying, I said, reaching for Daniel's hand. He pulled away. Daniel, please. Show him, Jake called out, addressing someone in the crowd. Show him the proof. My heart stopped as Terrell, Jake's best friend, stood up from the 3rd row. He held up his phone, his expression grim. I didn't want to do this, man, he said to Daniel. But you deserve to know. Daniel walked down the steps toward Terrell, taking the phone. I followed, my legs moving without conscious thought. Over his shoulder, I saw what looked like text messages. My name, dates from 3 weeks ago, words I'd never written. This isn't real, I said, my voice rising. I never sent these. I haven't spoken to Jake since we broke up. Daniel's face had gone completely blank, a mask I couldn't read. There are pictures, Stella. What pictures? I grabbed for the phone, but he pulled it away. Daniel, whatever he's showing you, it's fake. I would never... Your birthmark, he said quietly. The one on your hip. It's visible in these photos. The room spun around me. How could there be photos? How could anyone have fabricated something so specific? I can explain, Jake said, his voice suddenly reasonable, concerned. She came to me confused, saying she had doubts. I should have turned her away, but... Shut up, I screamed, whirling to face him. You're lying, I never came to you. But the damage was done. I could see it in Daniel's eyes, in the way he couldn't quite look at me. Doubt had taken root. Daniel, I pleaded, reaching for him again. You know me. You know I wouldn't do this. He finally met my gaze, his eyes swimming with pain. I thought I knew you. From the corner of my eye, I caught Sarah slipping her phone into her purse, her face set in determination rather than shock. Unlike everyone else, she didn't look surprised. She looked ready. What did Sarah know that I didn't? The next hours passed in a blur of tears and accusations. Someone, Ivy, I think, guided me to the bridal suite while voices erupted in the sanctuary behind us. I sat motionless on a velvet chair, my wedding dress pooling around me like spilled milk, as the carefully constructed future I'd planned crumbled. He's lying, I repeated, my voice growing hoarse. I haven't seen Jake in 3 years. Ivy paced in front of me, her bridesmaid dress rustling with each step. I believe you, Stella, but those pictures... She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. A soft knock interrupted us. Sarah slipped in, her face tense but composed. Everyone's gone, she said. Daniel left with his brother. I looked up at her, suddenly remembering what I'd seen. You weren't surprised, I said. When Jake burst in, you weren't shocked like everyone else. Sarah's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. She closed the door behind her and pulled a chair directly in front of mine. Because I knew he was planning something, she admitted, reaching into her purse. She withdrew a folded piece of paper. This was delivered to my apartment yesterday. My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. The handwriting was unmistakably Jake's, the same slanting script that had once filled birthday cards and apology notes after our fights. Sarah, I know we've never been close, but Stella needs to know the truth before she makes a terrible mistake. I'll be at the church tomorrow. Don't try to stop me. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, crumpling the paper in my fist. I tried calling him, Sarah said. He wouldn't answer. I thought about telling you, but it was your wedding day, Stella. I didn't want to ruin it with what might have been nothing. She leaned forward. I never imagined he'd create such an elaborate lie. Daniel believed him, I whispered, the reality of it hitting me anew. After everything we've been through, he believed Jake over me. Ivy sat beside me, taking my hand. He was blindsided. Those pictures looked real, Stella. But they can't be real. I stood suddenly, the weight of my dress nearly toppling me. I haven't been anywhere near Jake. Sarah's expression hardened. Then someone's gone to extraordinary lengths to fake them. The question is why? I sank back into the chair, my mind racing. Jake and I had ended badly. Screaming matches, broken dishes, and finally, a restraining order after he refused to accept it was over. But that was 3 years ago. He'd moved away. I'd met Daniel. Life had moved on, or so I thought. I need to see those pictures, I said. Sarah and Ivy exchanged glances. Are you sure that's a good idea? Ivy asked gently. I need to know what I'm fighting against. Sarah nodded and pulled out her phone. I asked Terrell to send them to me. Said I needed to show Daniel's family. She hesitated. They're intimate, Stella. My stomach clenched as she handed me the phone. I forced myself to look. The woman in the photos was undeniably me, or someone who looked exactly like me, down to the crescent-shaped birthmark on my right hip. Her face was partially obscured in most shots, but the hair, the body shape, even the small scar on my shoulder from a childhood accident, all perfect matches. This is impossible, I breathed, scrolling through the images. This can't be me. Photoshop has gotten incredibly sophisticated, Sarah said, taking back her phone. But to fake this level of detail, Jake would need recent photos of you. Intimate ones. The implication hung in the air. Only Daniel had those kinds of photos. Daniel would never share those with anyone, I said firmly. And these are recent. Look at my hair. I only got it cut like this 2 months ago. Sarah's eyes narrowed. So either someone's been photographing you without your knowledge, or these are real, and I'm having some kind of psychotic break where I don't remember sleeping with my ex. I finished bitterly. Ivy stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We know you, Stella. If Jake thinks he can waltz back into your life and destroy everything you've built, he's underestimated all of us. A knock at the door interrupted us. The wedding coordinator peeked in, her professional smile strained. I'm so sorry about everything, she said, but the church needs the room for another event. Is there somewhere I can send your things? Reality crashed back. No wedding, no reception, no honeymoon to Greece next week. My apartment, I said hollowly. The apartment I'd planned to sublet while Daniel and I moved into our new house. As we gathered my belongings, my phone buzzed with a text. Daniel, I need time to think. Don't try to contact me. 5 years of love, of building trust, of planning a future, reduced to a single cold text. He can't really believe this, I said, showing Sarah the message. She read it, her expression darkening. Men are idiots when they're hurt. Give him space to realize how absurd this all is. But as we left the church, I caught sight of a familiar figure watching from across the street. Jake. When our eyes met, he didn't look triumphant or smug. He looked terrified, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just about ruining my wedding. Something much bigger was at stake, and I was determined to find out what. Sleep never came. I spent the night pacing my apartment, wedding dress discarded in a heap on the bathroom floor. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face. The way trust drained from his expression, replaced by doubt and betrayal. By dawn, my sadness had crystallized into something harder. Determination. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. I need to find Jake, I said when she answered, my voice raspy from crying. He looked scared yesterday. Whatever game he's playing, something's off. I'm already on it, Sarah replied, sounding wide awake despite the early hour. I've been digging all night. Jake's been back in town for 3 months working at Meridian Financial. 3 months? The timeline made my skin crawl. That can't be a coincidence. It gets worse. Guess who else works there? My stomach dropped. Who? Terrell, the same guy who conveniently had those photos ready to show Daniel. I pressed my palm against my forehead, trying to process this information. So they've been working together, planning this. Looks that way. Meet me for coffee in an hour? I have more. 40 minutes later, I sat across from Sarah at a corner table in an empty cafe, both of us hunched over her laptop. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her energy was focused, almost feverish. Jake's been living in this apartment complex, she said, pointing to a map. It's not far from your running route. You think he's been following me? I think it's worth finding out. She clicked to another screen. I also found this. A social media post appeared. Jake at a bar with his arm around a woman. She was laughing, head tilted back, dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Something about her looked familiar. Who is she? I asked. Elizabeth Turner. Works at Meridian too. But here's the interesting part. Sarah zoomed in on the woman's face. Notice anything? I studied the image, then felt my breath catch. She looks like me. Similar enough that with the right angle, lighting, and maybe some digital tweaking, she could pass for me in fake photos. I finished, a chill running through me. Have you shown this to Daniel? Sarah's expression tightened. I tried calling him. He's not answering anyone's calls. I swallowed hard, fighting back a fresh wave of hurt. I need to talk to Jake directly. Confront him. Stella, that's dangerous. He has a restraining order history. Which expired 2 years ago, I countered. And I won't go alone. You'll come with me. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. We'll go to his workplace. Public setting, witnesses everywhere. 2 hours later, we stood in the gleaming lobby of Meridian Financial. My heart hammered against my ribs as the receptionist called up to Jake's department. Mr. Sanderson will be down shortly, she said with a practiced smile. I smoothed my blouse, suddenly aware of how I must look. Eyes puffy from crying, hair hastily pulled back. But I straightened my spine. I wouldn't let Jake see me broken. The elevator doors opened, and there he was. He froze when he saw me, that same flash of fear crossing his face before he masked it with a smirk. Stella, shouldn't you be on your honeymoon? His voice carried across the lobby, drawing curious glances. I stepped forward, keeping my voice low but firm. We need to talk. Now. I have nothing to say to you. Really? After what you did yesterday, you owe me an explanation. Jake's eyes darted to Sarah, then back to me. I told the truth, that's all. We know about Elizabeth, Sarah interjected. We know you've been planning this. Something flickered in Jake's expression. Surprise? Maybe even panic. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a side hallway. Not here, he hissed. Sarah moved to follow, but I shook my head slightly. I needed to face him alone. In a small conference room, Jake closed the door and turned to me. Up close, I could see the strain in his face, the nervous energy in his movements. You have no idea what you're messing with, he said. Then explain it to me, I demanded. Why destroy my wedding? Why fake those photos? I didn't fake anything. Stop lying. I slammed my palm on the table. I haven't seen you in 3 years, Jake. I never slept with you. Those pictures are fake, and I think Elizabeth helped you create them. He flinched at the name. Keep her out of this. Why? Is she your accomplice or your victim? Jake ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it sent an unwelcome pang through me. Once I'd loved this man. Once I'd believed his promises. You don't understand, he said, voice suddenly tired. I had to stop the wedding. Why? Because he's not who you think he is. Jake's eyes met mine, unexpectedly sincere. Daniel is dangerous, Stella. I laughed bitterly. Daniel? You're calling him dangerous after what you did to me? I know how it sounds, but I found something. At work. Files. Transactions. He lowered his voice. Daniel's involved in something illegal, something big. The room seemed to tilt slightly. You expect me to believe that? After you humiliated me in front of everyone I love? I tried calling you for weeks. You blocked my number. Of course I blocked you. You stalked me after we broke up. Jake stepped closer. I have proof, Stella, about Daniel. That's why they're after me now. They? Who's they? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. The color drained from his face as he read the message. I have to go. He moved toward the door. Jake, wait. They know I'm talking to you. His voice shook. I never wanted to hurt you, Stella. But you need to look into Daniel's work at Westlake Partners, the Osiris Project. He slipped out before I could respond, leaving me standing alone with a name I'd never heard before, and the first seed of doubt about the man I'd almost married. The Osiris Project? Sarah repeated, her brow furrowed. We sat in her car in the Meridian Financial parking lot, the air conditioning blasting against the midday heat. And you believe him? I stared out the window, watching as employees filtered in and out of the building. I don't know what to believe anymore. Stella, this is Jake we're talking about. The same man who followed you for months after you broke up. The same man who just destroyed your wedding with fake photos. But what if they weren't fake? The question had been gnawing at me since our confrontation. What if there's something bigger happening? He seemed genuinely scared. Sarah gripped the steering wheel, though the car wasn't moving. So what now? You're going to investigate Daniel based on Jake's word? I pulled out my phone, opening my photos. Daniel smiled back at me from countless images. Hiking trips, dinner dates, quiet mornings with coffee. The man I knew was kind, thoughtful, ethical to a fault. I need to know, I said finally. If there's even a chance Jake is telling the truth about Daniel being involved in something illegal? Then what? You forgive Jake for what he did? No, never. I turned to face her. But I need to understand why my life imploded. I can't move forward until I do. Sarah sighed, then nodded. Westlake Partners. Let's see what we can find. Back at my apartment, we spread our research across my dining table. Westlake Partners was a private equity firm where Daniel had worked before joining his current company 3 years ago, right around when Jake and I had broken up. Nothing unusual here, Sarah said, scrolling through their website. Standard corporate finance stuff. I chewed my lip, thinking. Daniel rarely talked about his time there. Said it wasn't a good fit. That's hardly suspicious. People leave jobs all the time. I know, but I stopped, remembering something. Wait, there was a photo from a company event. I dug through a box of memorabilia I'd kept from our relationship. Ticket stubs, cards, printed photos. Near the bottom, I found what I was looking for. Daniel at a corporate gala, champagne glass in hand, smiling stiffly beside a group of executives. This was at Westlake, I said, handing it to Sarah. Look at the banner behind them. She squinted at the image. Westlake Partners, pioneering tomorrow's solutions. She looked up. Generic corporate speak. But look at the logo in the corner. A small emblem sat in the bottom right of the banner. A stylized eye inside a pyramid. The Eye of Horus, I said. An Egyptian symbol. Osiris was an Egyptian god. Sarah's skepticism wavered. That's actually interesting. I grabbed my laptop, searching for Westlake Partners and Osiris. Nothing relevant appeared. I tried different combinations, different search engines. Still nothing. If there is an Osiris project, they've kept it well hidden, Sarah said. I sat back, frustrated. We need someone who knows more about Westlake's operations. What about Daniel's friends from there? Did you meet any? I thought for a moment. Just one. Terrell. Sarah's eyes widened. The same Terrell who had those photos at your wedding? Who works with Jake now? Yes. The connections were starting to form a pattern. Terrell left Westlake around the same time Daniel did. They weren't close, but they knew each other. And now Terrell works with Jake at Meridian. Sarah leaned forward. Stella, what if Jake isn't lying about Daniel, but he's not telling the whole truth either? What if all three of them are involved in something? The thought made my stomach turn. I'd spent 3 years building a life with Daniel, believing I finally understood what healthy love felt like after the chaos with Jake. What if it had all been a lie? My phone buzzed. A text from Ivy. Are you okay? Haven't heard from you since yesterday. Worried. Guilt washed over me. In my determination to uncover the truth, I'd shut out my sister. I need to talk to Ivy, I said. She might have insights we're missing. 2 hours later, Ivy sat across from me in my living room, her expression growing more troubled as I explained everything. Jake's warning, the Osiris connection, Terrell's involvement. This sounds like conspiracy theory territory, she said when I finished. Are you sure you're not just looking for a way to make sense of what happened? Of course I am, I admitted, but that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Ivy reached for my hand. Stella, I'm worried about you. First, Jake humiliates you at your wedding. Now you're investigating Daniel based on Jake's claims? This isn't healthy. So I should just accept that my fiancé thinks I cheated and move on? No, but... She hesitated. Maybe talk to Daniel directly? Ask him about Westlake? He won't answer my calls. Then give him time. This wild goose chase feels like you're avoiding the real issue. Rebuilding trust with Daniel. Her words stung because they contained truth. Part of me was afraid to face Daniel, afraid that even if I proved the photos were fake, the doubt they created could never be erased. I need to know who's lying to me, I said firmly. Jake, Daniel, or both of them, Ivy sighed. Just be careful. Jake was toxic for you. Don't let him pull you back into his orbit. After she left, I found myself staring at the photo from the Westlake Gala again. Something about it nagged at me. I zoomed in on the faces in the background, scanning the crowd of unfamiliar executives. And then I saw her, partially obscured but unmistakable. Elizabeth Turner, the woman from Jake's social media, standing near the back of the room watching Daniel. My phone pinged with an email notification. Unknown sender, subject line, Osiris documentation. Inside was a single file, a scanned document with the Westlake letterhead, dated 3 years ago. Most of it was redacted, but one paragraph remained clear. Project Osiris participants, DM and TT, have successfully completed Phase 1. Transition to Meridian Financial approved for continued asset development and monitoring of subject SW, DM Daniel Murphy, TT Terrell Thomas, and SW, Stella Wade, me. My hands shook as I stared at the document, reading those initials over and over. SW subject, SW me. I called Sarah immediately. I need you to come back, I said, my voice barely steady. Now. While waiting, I paced my apartment, my mind racing through every moment with Daniel. Our accidental meeting at that bookstore. How quickly he'd wanted to get serious. His interest in my work, my friends, my past. Had it all been calculated? Was our entire relationship just asset development? By the time Sarah arrived, rain was pounding against my windows, matching the storm inside me. Jesus, she whispered, reading the document. Who sent this to you? I don't know. The email address is just random numbers. Sarah looked up, her face pale. Stella, if this is real, if Daniel and Terrell were monitoring you as part of some project, then my entire relationship was a lie. Saying it aloud made my knees weak. I sank onto the couch. But why me? What could they possibly want with me? Your work, maybe? Sarah suggested. You do have access to sensitive financial data. I shook my head. I'm a mid-level analyst, nothing special. Sarah sat beside me, her expression hardening. We need to talk to Jake again. He clearly knows more than he's telling us. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I can't trust Jake either. For all I know, he's part of this too. Then who sent you this document? I stared at the rain streaming down my windows, feeling cornered. I don't know who to trust anymore. You can trust me, Sarah said firmly. Could I, though? The paranoia that had taken root was growing by the minute. Sarah had been my best friend for years, but she'd also known about Jake's plan to disrupt the wedding and hadn't warned me. What else might she be keeping from me? I need some air, I said suddenly, standing. I'm going for a walk. In this storm? Stella, I need to think, alone. I grabbed my raincoat and keys. I'll call you later. Outside, the rain soaked through my clothes within minutes, but I welcomed the physical discomfort. It gave me something to focus on besides the sickening betrayal. Without conscious direction, my feet carried me toward the park where Daniel had proposed 6 months ago. I stood under the gazebo where he'd knelt with the ring, water dripping from my hair, and tried to reconcile the man I loved with someone who could coldly monitor me for years. Thought I might find you here. I whirled around. Yolanda stood at the gazebo entrance, an umbrella in hand, concern etched across her face. How did you know? I asked. Sarah called me. She's worried about you. Yolanda stepped under the shelter, closing her umbrella. Said you received some disturbing information. I hesitated, suddenly wary. Did she tell you what it was? No, just that you were upset and left in the storm. She studied my face. What's going on, Stella? This isn't like you. The maternal concern in her voice nearly broke me. Yolanda had been my rock since college, the one who'd helped me through my darkest days after Jake. I don't know who to trust, I admitted, my voice cracking. Everyone's been lying to me. Yolanda guided me to a bench. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her everything. Jake's disruption, the fake photos, his warning about Daniel, the document linking Daniel and Terrell to something called the Osiris Project, with me as their subject. Yolanda listened without interrupting, her expression growing more troubled with each revelation. Have you considered, she said carefully when I finished, that Jake might have fabricated this document too? To drive a wedge between you and Daniel? Why would he go to such elaborate lengths? Because he never got over you, Stella. Some men can't stand seeing their ex-partners happy with someone else. I wanted to believe her simple explanation. It would be easier than accepting that my entire life might be built on lies. But what about Terrell? I pressed. Why would he help Jake unless there was something bigger happening? Yolanda sighed. I don't know, but rushing to conclusions won't help. You need evidence, not just suspicious connections. What kind of evidence? Something concrete linking Daniel to this Osiris project. Something that explains why you were targeted. She squeezed my hand. And you need to be careful. If there really is something sinister happening, these people won't want you digging. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time we left the gazebo. As Yolanda walked me home, a strange calm settled over me. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold determination. Thank you, I said when we reached my building. For listening, for not thinking I'm crazy. I've known you too long to think that. She hugged me tightly. Promise me you'll be careful. I will. After she left, I stood in my darkened apartment, staring at my reflection in the window. 3 days ago, I'd been a bride, full of hope. Now I was something else. A woman with nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Storage Unit 247, Riverside Facility. Code 351 come alone. Answers about Osiris. I should have been scared. Instead, I felt a surge of grim purpose. Whatever game they were playing, I was done being a pawn. As I changed into dry clothes, my gaze fell on the photo from Daniel's nightstand that I'd taken when I moved out. Us laughing on a beach last summer. I turned it face down. The man I loved had never existed. The Riverside storage facility loomed against the night sky, a sprawling complex of identical metal units. Every instinct screamed that I was walking into a trap, yet here I was, guided by desperation and rage. I'd told no one where I was going. Not Sarah, not Ivy, not Yolanda. Trust had become a luxury I couldn't afford. Unit 247 was tucked in a back corner, away from the security cameras I'd spotted at the entrance. I punched in the code, 3517, and the padlock clicked open. I hesitated, hand on the door. Once I stepped inside, there would be no going back to blissful ignorance. Drawing a deep breath, I lifted the rolling door. The interior was pitch black. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam across the space. Metal shelving lined the walls, stacked with unmarked boxes. A desk sat in the center, its surface bare except for a laptop. Hello? My voice echoed in the confined space. No answer. I approached the desk cautiously. The laptop was open, its screen dark. When I touched the trackpad, it illuminated instantly. No password required. A video player filled the screen, paused on an image of an office. I pressed play. Subject demonstrates continued resistance to standard influence techniques, a male voice said off-camera. The timestamp showed a date from 2 years ago. The camera panned to reveal Daniel sitting behind a desk, reviewing what looked like a file. My file, I realized with a sickening jolt as I glimpsed my photo. Emotional attachment appears genuine. Daniel continued, speaking to someone recording. But her psychological profile makes her unpredictable. The trauma from her father's abandonment creates persistent trust issues that complicate the operation. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. Daniel's clinical dissection of my deepest wounds felt like a physical blow. Recommendation? Asked another voice. Terrell's. Accelerate timeline to phase 3. Proposal, integration of finances, full access to her professional network. The video ended, replaced by another. This one showed Daniel and Terrell in what appeared to be a conference room at Westlake. The girl is a complication, said an older man I didn't recognize. She was never part of the original plan. She's not a complication, Daniel argued. She's an opportunity. Her position at the firm gives us access to the Harrington accounts without raising flags. And if she discovers what you're doing? Daniel's expression hardened in a way I'd never seen before. She won't. I felt physically ill. The Daniel I knew, the man who held me through nightmares, who brought me soup when I was sick, who proposed with tears in his eyes, was a carefully constructed fiction. More videos followed. Daniel reporting on our relationship milestones, Terrell tracking my work activities, discussions of how to use my financial access for something they called the redistribution. I was so absorbed in the footage that I didn't hear the storage unit door closing behind me until the metallic clang echoed through the space. I spun around, heart hammering. A figure stood in the shadows. I wasn't sure you'd come. Elizabeth Turner stepped into the pool of light from the laptop screen. In person, the resemblance between us was even more striking. Same height, similar build, her features a slightly sharper version of my own. You, I breathed. You're the woman in the photos with Jake. And you're the woman they used me to impersonate. Her voice was bitter. We're both pawns, Stella, just in different games. You sent me the document and the text. She nodded. I've been trying to reach you for months, but they monitor your communications, your movements. They've been watching you since before you met Daniel. Why? What do they want from me? Access. Your firm manages accounts for people who've stolen billions. Westlake identified you as the perfect entry point. Emotionally vulnerable after Jake, professionally positioned to help them access certain accounts. So everything, my entire relationship with Daniel, was a setup? The words felt like glass in my throat. Not at first, Elizabeth said, surprising me. You were supposed to be a short-term operation, but Daniel broke protocol. He developed genuine feelings. Hope flickered briefly before she continued. That's what made him dangerous to them. A liability. They've been watching him too, making sure he stays on script. She gestured to the laptop. These videos were his insurance policy, his way of protecting himself if things went wrong. And Jake? Where does he fit in all this? Elizabeth's expression darkened. Jake was recruited to disrupt your wedding. Daniel was getting cold feet about using you. The wedding would have given you legal access to his accounts that would have exposed everything. So Jake was trying to protect me? The idea seemed absurd after what he'd done. In his way, but Jake has his own agenda. Always has. She checked her watch. We need to go. They'll know someone accessed this unit. Who is they? The people behind Osiris. The ones Daniel and Terrell answer to. She moved toward the door. Coming? I hesitated, looking back at the laptop with its damning evidence. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Trust no one. Her smile was grim. But right now, I'm the only one telling you the truth. As we slipped out into the night, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. We need to talk. I know what you found. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the place I proposed. Come alone. Elizabeth read the message over my shoulder, her face paling. He knows, which means they know. Good, I said, a cold resolve settling in my chest. It's time to end this. Stella, you don't understand what these people are capable of. No, I cut her off. They don't understand what I'm capable of. The park looked different in daylight. Peaceful, ordinary, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I arrived 20 minutes early, positioning myself on a bench with clear sightlines to all approaches. Elizabeth's warnings echoed in my head. They're more dangerous than you realize. I'd spent the night in a hotel under a false name, my mind racing through everything I'd learned. The pieces fit together in a sickening puzzle. Daniel using me for access to accounts, Jake disrupting the wedding, Elizabeth impersonating me in those photos. Everyone playing their assigned roles while I remained blissfully ignorant. At precisely 10 a.m., Daniel appeared on the path, alone as requested. My heart twisted painfully at the sight of him. He looked exhausted, stubble darkening his jaw, his normally immaculate clothes slightly rumpled. For a moment, I could almost believe he was just my heartbroken fiancé, not the manipulator from those videos. He spotted me and froze momentarily before approaching with measured steps. Stella. My name on his lips sounded different now. cautious, almost reverent. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? I kept my voice steady despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. He sat beside me, leaving careful distance between us. You always have choices. That's what makes you, you. Save the philosophical bullshit, Daniel. I saw the videos. His shoulders slumped. I know. I set up alerts on that storage unit. When someone accessed it, I figured it had to be you. How long? I demanded. How long have you been using me? Daniel stared at his hands. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When Westlake first identified you as a potential asset, it was just business. Find someone at your firm, get close, gather information. And my psychological profile made me the perfect target. The words tasted bitter. Daddy issues, trust problems. I must have been so easy to manipulate. No. His head snapped up, eyes meeting mine with unexpected intensity. That's why everything changed. You weren't easy. You were careful, guarded. Every bit of trust you gave me felt earned, precious. He swallowed hard. Somewhere along the way, the operation became real for me. You expect me to believe you actually fell in love with me? While reporting on my vulnerabilities? While planning to use me to access accounts? Yes. The simplicity of his answer caught me off guard. That's why I started keeping evidence, making those recordings. I knew I'd need leverage if I ever tried to get out. Get out of what exactly? What is Osiris? Daniel glanced around nervously before leaning closer. A redistribution operation. Westlake identified wealthy clients who made their fortunes through exploitation or fraud. The plan was to access their accounts through various channels, including your firm, and redirect funds to selected causes. You're stealing money from people who stole it first. His eyes pleaded for understanding. I believed in the mission, Stella. Until I met you. Until I realized what it was costing. So Jake was telling the truth? You are dangerous? Daniel's expression hardened. Jake is working both sides. He was hired to stop the wedding, yes, but not to protect you. To protect the operation. My mind raced. But Elizabeth said, Elizabeth? Daniel's face drained of color. You've spoken to Elizabeth? Before I could respond, movement caught my eye. Sarah was walking briskly toward us, her expression grim. Sarah? I stood, confused. What are you doing here? Daniel rose beside me, tension radiating from him. You brought her into this? I didn't tell her I was meeting you. Sarah reached us, slightly breathless. Thank God you're both here. We have a problem. She turned to Daniel. They've moved up the timeline. They know Stella found the storage unit. The casual way she addressed him, the shared understanding in their exchange, it clicked into place with sickening clarity. You're part of this, I whispered, backing away from her. You've been part of this all along. Sarah's expression softened with regret. I was assigned to you before Daniel, to become your friend, to guide you toward the right opportunities. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd felt before. Sarah, my best friend for 5 years, my confidant, my maid of honor. All of it was a lie, I said, my voice breaking. Every single relationship in my life. Not all of it, Daniel insisted. What I feel for you is real. Real enough that I've been trying to find a way out for both of us. It's too late for that, Sarah said sharply. They've sent Terrell to tie up loose ends. We need to move now. As if summoned by her words, Terrell appeared at the far end of the park, walking purposefully in our direction. Stella, Daniel said urgently. I know you have no reason to trust me, but right now we need to leave. Together. I looked between them. Daniel, the man I'd loved, whose betrayal had shattered my world. Sarah, my closest friend, whose entire relationship with me had been an assignment. And Terrell, approaching with cold determination. In that moment of paralysis, my phone buzzed. A text from Yolanda. Whatever they're telling you, don't believe them. I have the real Osiris files. Come to me. No, I said, stepping back from both of them. This ends now, but not your way. I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. I've been recording everything. Your confessions, your explanations, all of it. And I've just sent it to multiple secure locations. Daniel's eyes widened. Stella, you don't understand what you've done. I understand perfectly. My voice grew stronger with each word. You all played me like a game, used my past, my pain, my trust against me. But that ends today. I held up my hand as Terrell reached us, stopping him in his tracks. I've sent everything to the FBI. I lied, watching their faces pale. The videos, the documents, this conversation. Your entire operation is exposed. Sarah stepped toward me. Stella, please. Stay back. I backed away, addressing all three of them. You have about 10 minutes before this park is swarming with federal agents. I suggest you use them wisely. The look of genuine fear that crossed their faces told me my bluff had worked. As I turned and walked away, my phone buzzed again with another message from Yolanda. They're coming for you. Run. I ran until my lungs burned, weaving through side streets and alleyways. Yolanda's warning pounded in my head with each footstep. They're coming for you. They're coming for you. But who was they? Daniel and Sarah? Terrell? Some shadowy organization behind Osiris? And where did Yolanda fit into all this? I ducked into a coffee shop, ordering a drink I didn't want just to blend in. My hands trembled as I texted Yolanda. Where are you? Where should I meet you? Her response came immediately. My house. Come through the back. Don't tell anyone. I hesitated. Trust had become a luxury I couldn't afford, yet I was running out of options. If Yolanda truly had the Osiris files, she might be my only chance at understanding the full scope of what I'd been caught in. 30 minutes and 2 bus transfers later, I approached Yolanda's modest suburban home from the rear, as instructed. The back door opened before I could knock. Quickly, she urged, pulling me inside. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, her eyes darting nervously. Were you followed? I don't think so. I collapsed into a kitchen chair, the adrenaline crash hitting me hard. Yolanda, what's happening? How are you involved in this? She placed a laptop on the table between us. I worked for Westlake before I retired. I was in compliance, monitoring internal operations for legal violations. You knew about Osiris? About what they were doing to me? Pain flashed across her face. Not until recently. When you told me about the document you received, certain pieces clicked into place. Projects I'd flagged years ago but was told to ignore. She opened the laptop, typing in a complex password. I still had backdoor access to some systems. What I found... She shook her head. Osiris wasn't what Daniel told you. It wasn't about redistributing stolen wealth. Then what was it? A blackmail operation. She turned the screen toward me. They identified wealthy, powerful people with secrets. Then they placed operatives, like Daniel, like Sarah, to gather compromising information. Sometimes financial, sometimes personal. I scanned the documents on screen. Lists of targets, operation parameters, payment structures. So they weren't stealing money. They were extorting it. Exactly. And you were valuable because your position gave them access to sensitive client information. Information they could leverage. My stomach twisted. And Jake? Where does he fit? Jake was originally one of their operatives too. That's how you met him in the first place. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Our entire relationship was fabricated? From the very beginning? Yes, but something unexpected happened. Jake actually fell for you. He went off script, became possessive, volatile. They terminated his involvement but kept monitoring you through other channels. My mind reeled, reconstructing the past 3 years through this new lens. So when Jake showed up at my wedding, he was trying to stop you from legally binding yourself to Daniel, yes, but not to protect you, to get back at them for cutting him out. She sighed. Jake's not a hero in this story, Stella. He's just another manipulator with his own agenda. A knock at the front door made us both freeze. "Are you expecting someone?" I whispered. Yolanda shook her head, moving cautiously toward the entryway. I followed, heart pounding. Through the peephole, I saw Ivy standing on the porch, alone and visibly upset. "It's my sister," I said, relief washing over me. Yolanda opened the door. Ivy rushed in, throwing her arms around me. "Thank God," she breathed. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "How did you know I was here?" I asked, suddenly wary. "Sarah told me. She said you were in danger, that I should find you before they did." Alarm bells rang in my head. "Sarah told you?" "Ivy, Sarah is part of this. She's been lying to me for years." Confusion crossed Ivy's face. "What?" "No, Sarah called me in tears. She said she's been working undercover for the FBI, investigating Westlake and Osiris. That's why she got close to you." I looked to Yolanda, whose expression had turned unreadable. "The FBI isn't involved," Yolanda said firmly. "Sarah is lying to you, Ivy." "Actually," came a voice from the doorway. "She's not." Elizabeth stood there, holding up a badge. "Elizabeth Turner, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And you, Yolanda McGee, are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice." As if on cue, agents swarmed into the house. One gently moved me and Ivy aside while others surrounded Yolanda. "I don't understand," I stammered. Yolanda was helping me. "Yolanda McGee isn't just former Westlake compliance," Elizabeth explained, her voice softening. "She's the architect of Osiris. The entire operation was her design." I stared at Yolanda, the woman who'd been my surrogate mother for years. "Is that true?" Yolanda's face hardened as agents cuffed her. "You have no idea what some people deserve, Stella. The wealthy, the privileged, they take and take while others suffer. Osiris was justice." "And me? Was using me justice too? You were a means to an end. Nothing personal." As they led her away, Elizabeth turned to me. "Sarah really is one of ours. We placed her years ago to infiltrate Osiris. When you became a target, her assignment expanded to protect you while gathering evidence." "And Daniel?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Recruited by Westlake legitimately, then drawn into Osiris. When he realized what was happening with you, he began cooperating with us. Those videos you found? He made sure they'd be discovered." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. So everything was still a lie. Just a different kind of lie. "Not everything," said a familiar voice. Daniel stood in the doorway, Sarah beside him. The sight of them sent conflicting waves of anger and relief through me. "The operation was real," Sarah said quietly. "My assignment was real. But our friendship, Stella? That was never fake." "And us?" I asked Daniel, my voice barely audible. "The beginning was calculated," he admitted. "But everything since then, every moment, every feeling, that was real. I fell in love with you, Stella. That's why I started working with the FBI. To protect you. To deserve you." I looked between them. The fiancé who'd lied to get close to me but fought to protect me. The best friend who'd been placed in my life but had genuinely cared. My sister, the only person who'd been exactly who she claimed to be all along. "I need time," I said finally. "Time to process, to think, to decide what's real for me." Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here if you're ready." As the agents finished their work, Ivy put her arm around me. "Come stay with me. No pressure, no decisions. Just space to breathe." Outside, the morning sun broke through clouds, casting long shadows across the lawn. I watched as Yolanda was placed in a government vehicle, as Elizabeth conferred with other agents, as Sarah and Daniel waited respectfully at a distance. For years, I'd been a pawn in someone else's game, my fears and vulnerabilities exploited, my trust betrayed. But standing there, I realized something had shifted inside me. The woman who had walked down that aisle in a white dress, desperate for approval and terrified of abandonment, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, Someone who would never again let others define her reality. I'm ready to go, I told Ivy, turning my back on the chaos. Not running away this time, but walking deliberately toward a future that, for the first time in my life, would be entirely of my own making.